All right, guys. Jameson and Alex
That's
here.
right.
Today we're going to be talking about the Way of the Masks monk, a.k.a. Luchador monk. You'll understand why.
I don't know what else you would call it.
Yeah, I know, right? But this is from Valda's Spire of Secrets.
Not everything.
Not everything. I have to pause every time because I almost say it.
Just the secrets.
All that being said, if you're new to the channel or to the subclass series, what we're going to do is go through all the abilities gained in this subclass, and then we're going to rate it based on its roleplay value, combat value, and overall class synergy, based on how the abilities gained improve on the base class abilities. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to be entered in our giveaway for the D&D Beyond Players Bundle.
Stuff.
And of course, as always, thank you to our sponsors, Hit Point Press. Make sure you check out their new animated spell cards, their spell decks, their Humblewood box sets, their pins, their plushies, all the things.
The Owl Knight. I mean, just go there for the Owl Knight.
Everything.
He's amazing.
They have their bigbads.com as well, where they got all kinds of stuff, guys. If you're not checking them out regularly, something you should add onto your weekly list because they're always adding
there's
stuff on.
There's a lot of cool stuff in there for sure.
All that being said, we will jump straight into the Luchador Monk. Alex,
It is.
what do we get?
It's known as Way of the Mask. Luchador Monk is also acceptable. Starting at level 3, you get Crowd Favorite. When you choose this tradition, you can choose to add your Charisma modifier instead of your Wisdom modifier to your key save DC.
Okay.
Additionally, your unarmored defense is calculated using your Charisma. So its AC is 10 plus Strength plus Charisma.
Yeah, so strength.
Instead of Dex and Wisdom, like a normal wise and agile monk, you are a strong monk with oodles of charisma.
You are the Rock.
Yes. Essentially you smolder. It's what you do with the Luchador monk.
Also at level 3, we have Heavyweight Champion. When presented with an obstacle, your first instinct is to wrestle it, even if the obstacle in question is not conventionally wrestleable.
It's my new favorite hyphenated word. Is it wrestleable?
But does it wrestle? Like a dragon, an ooze, or an awkward conversation. This book, guys, this book.
It's well written. Very well.
At 3rd level, you gain the following features. You can attempt to grapple any creature regardless of size. Typically, it's only one size category above your own.
Yep.
Not for you.
So normally you're medium and you only grapple in large or smaller. It's like, that ancient red dragon, if you want to try to grapple that sucker, guess what? You sure can.
Give me that gargantuan monster real quick. Just grab it onto their ankle or something.
We're an army of 10. We're fighting team. I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to wrestle. I'm going to wrestle.
You can use your action to try to pin a creature grappled to you. Grappled by you, I guess, technically. To do so, make another grapple check. If you succeed, you and the creature are both restrained until the grapple ends. Similar to the grapple feat. Speaking of the grappler feat...
Oh, I see what you did there.
If you have the grappler feat, you can choose whether a target grappled by you must make a strength, athletics, or dexterity acrobatics check to escape.
Love
that could be huge.
Love that.
So it does give you a reason to still take grappler. You also, with the grappler feat, if you're not familiar with it, you get basically the last ability, which is the ability to restrain them and yourself, but also the ability to get advantage on your attacks as well.
Yep.
So you're getting some extra bonuses to this. Also getting the, dex or strength can be a big deal.
Yeah, because if you want to wrestle something that's kind of,
usually
small and agile, you're like, oh, he's going to use his acrobatics and try to slip out of there. It's like, no, he's going to have to outforce me out of here. Right. And he's not going to do it very well.
Yeah, it's going
to
make the grapples.
If you want to wrestle the big giant, well, how about just giant? You're like... It's like, oh, no, he's strong, but is he smooth enough to get out of this grip? No, he's going to use his acrobatics to get out of here, and guess what? He's not going to be able to do all that well.
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to have him grappled by his big toe, but, he's not going anywhere.
Pin him down.
Starting at level 6, you get a signature move, and you get to choose one of the following features of your choice. Each of these features has a suggested name, but you can choose any name for your signature move, as you should, because you're charismatic monk. You're not just some regular monk. Preferably one that sounds good being chanted by a crowd and yelled by you while you perform it, because it's with every villain stereotype. You yell exactly what you're about to do before you do it.
Like every anime, you gotta name every ability you use before
you do it. So the 3 different options you have for an object. You are proficient with improvised weapons, which count as a monk weapon for you. On each of your turns, you can spend 1 key point at half of your monk level to the damage of an improvised weapon.
Sure.
I mean, you want to smack somebody with a bar stool, make it hurt. Next up is Headbutt of Justice. Once on each of your turns, when you miss with an unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to follow it up with a quick headbutt. Make a second unarmed strike against the same target. The damage die must unarmed strike is a D8, so it doesn't scale up with you like normal.
Right.
So it starts off less than it's a D8, but again it gives you an opportunity to hit if you were to miss with another option.
Right.
And finally we have the Infinity Suplex. That's fun as it is. While you are grappling another creature, you can use your bonus action and spend 1 key point in the grapple early by hurling your opponent over your shoulder and slamming them into the ground. Make an attack roll against your creature you are grappling. On a hit, the creature takes bludgeoning damage equal to 2d10 plus your strength modifier and is knocked prone. Yeah. The grapple then ends.
That's a pretty big deal though, because you get all you have to do is hit them to knock them prone. Mm-hmm. There's no save or anything. It's just.
Yes, again, no matter what the size of the creature is, as long as they're not immune to being knocked prone, you can just slam them suckers in the ground.
And if you're a grappler, you get advantage on attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. So, all right. Then level 11, we have Off the Top Rope. Once per turn, whenever you fall 5 feet or more immediately before making an unarmed strike, you can choose to either make a stunning strike without expending ki, or to knock the target prone and automatically grapple the target on a hit.
Love that. That's fun.
That's some utility. You gotta set it up a little bit with your people's elbow jumping up on it. But you get some benefits to it.
Tap it and show it.
And then lastly, we have Choked Out at level 17. Your chokeholds can knock out dragons. When you pin a creature grappled by you, you can spend 2 key points to attempt to choke the creature out. The creature must make a Constitution saving throw against your key save DC. On a failure, the creature is knocked unconscious rather than restrained until the start of your next turn. That's pretty big because they can't do anything while they're unconscious.
Literally nothing.
They're just done for a round.
And stuff has like attacks and advantage against them and things like that. Like
unconscious is pretty brutal. It's a pretty brutal status condition.
Yes.
All that being said, those are the abilities gained in the subclass. So now move on to the rating portion of the video. First up is the roleplay value asterisk, as always. Talking about roleplay value, we're talking about interacting with the world around you, interacting with NPCs, non-combat scenarios, avoiding combat, things outside.
Yeah, avoiding combat with the computer. My God.
Cut that out. Not talking about class, fantasy, history, lore, background. That's on you as a player. Can't rate you, but we can rate the abilities gained in the subclass and how they might improve your potential in those role-play scenarios.
That's correct.
Now, speaking of the roleplay value, there is one other thing I want to make a comment on, which is a little sidebar on the subclass. Does play a bit of a role in the subclass outside of just a typical flavor thing.
Yep.
It says people know you far and wide by the mask that you wear. Whenever you are in combat, you wear a tight mask made of leather or cloth ornately decorated in a theme of your choice. Your mask's theme must tie into your wrestling persona, which you adopt to stir crowds and build your legend. For example, your mask might include furs to look like a werewolf, fin to resemble a shark, or dark colors to evoke an executioner's garb. So with that side little comment on there, it is built into the subclass. You have a part of it that is your persona.
Yeah, so it's a written in flavor bit. Just like it tells you how you're going to act as a person, because you could almost even build yourself as kind of a split personality type of thing, which creates an interesting opportunity for a character that normally isn't in.
Yes. So we will give a tiny little bonus on there for that, kind of like we do with paladins with their oaths, because depending on the DM, they could reward or penalize you for not following said things, and since that is such a big deal of the whole subclass, we'll allow it. So
ruled
double asterisked on this one.
It has been done so.
That being said, the charisma side, being able to do that instead of wisdom, can come into play, though wisdom and charisma are both roleplay stats. Wisdom leans more on the exploration side, whereas charisma leans more on the social interaction side. So it's kind of a break even on there, being able to change those stat distributions.
You're just modifying what you're good at.
But
you're not good at normally what a monk's good at. You're good at what a bard or a sorcerer would be.
Barbarian, possibly. Sometimes they'll go into charisma for intimidation kind of feel.
Yeah, persuasion.
That being said, the capstone with the unconscious can be niche, and it is not until level 17. There's maybe some weird little side niche things you could do with your signature move, or like, I mean, it does talk about with the crowd, people recognizing you a little bit. It's not a explicitly written benefit. It's one of those kind of gray areas on there. But
if you were clever about it and your DM was,
I mean, it does say you can
would work with
it says you can wrestle with an awkward conversation. So
I mean, that's in their word for word.
It is word.
Okay, good.
But that being said, you can the thing with grappling and restraining can come into play, and having that ability, you could grapple or restrain guards. There's some weird stuff you could do in niche circumstances for sure. Or if someone's trying to get away, you can use your step of the wind and then run up to somebody and grapple them. There's some stuff like chases and stuff.
I'm going to Drax in Guardians, and he's like, my reflexes are too fast. I would have catched. You wrestle with a metaphor.
Hey.
So
all that being said,
made myself chuckle.
We went with A2.
Yeah.
So even I say we're like, oh, we're gonna give this a little bonus. We really did.
We went from like a 1.5 to a 2.
Yeah, just a tiny little thing on there.
Because there's a ton of actual mechanical flavor that it writes in there. And then with, the whole charisma thing does create an interesting opportunity that normally a monk has no business doing.
Right.
More than anything else. Onto the combat side of things. And again, it's Way of the Mask. We call it Luchador Monk for a reason. So guess what it's going to be more about? It's going to be more about fight stuff. And it's about wrestling. And again, is it wrestleable? For you, the answer is yes. Everything is wrestleable. The fact that it specifies you can grapple any size of creature. Of course, thing to keep in mind, but it does help you with that, is that you can choose whether you're going to get something's athletics or it's acrobatics is the biggest thing to me.
As long as you take the grappling.
Which is a huge factor.
Really
It's like if you're going to do this, you almost have to, which normally we're kind of against like builds that says it must do this in order to be at its best, but you really need to with this.
I think this might be one of, if not the only scenarios where a subclass gives you a extra bonus for having a feat.
Yes.
I don't know that any other subclass we've reviewed has that. I don't think so. That specifically says if you take this feat.
Which is cool, though.
Some of them will give you the abilities of a feat to an extent, but this is an extra bonus for having.
Like, especially if you have the grappler feat. Like, it was like, oh, maybe I should look at the grappler feat and see what it does. But yeah, it makes you lean in there in the most fun of ways, for sure. And again, you're going into a strength and a charisma build, so it just changes the way you function in combat instead of normal Dex and Wisdom Monk. The signature move thing, you have not only 1.2, but 3 different choices, which you can make as your signature move. The one thing I did not see specified, and I want to double check myself, so you choose one of the following features of your choice when you hit level 6. It does not specify in here if you can change it or when you can change it. Like if you leveled up and you decided you wanted to try something different for a while. Right. As a DM, that's one of those gray area things. Like I would definitely let my player change it when he leveled up if he or she wanted to. But it's not something you want to be able to change all the time. It's part of your persona is this is your signature move.
Exactly.
But maybe like if there's a 3-level run you're going through a phase as a wrestler, you're kind of changing your persona a little bit before you come back to where your original self. Like,
I'll allow it.
I lost my mind. There's some fun ways you can play around and make it make sense if you wanted to change it to try it out for something different. And again, they do lean into the whole wrestle thing of foreign objects, smacking somebody with a chair, things like that. It's a table. It's fantastic. Or the headbutt. Great. I love the fact that that's where it leans into, and the fact that you can tie it around to miss specifically. So if you do happen to miss with one of your shots, you can still get somebody the forehead of justice. And then the suplex thing, primarily would be the one I would probably lean toward.
I agree. It's the most utility
because it further leans into your whole grappling build.
Yeah.
And by choice, it's your bonus action.
Yeah.
So I specify that because you can technically grapple something as your action and then suplex it on the same turn, which is great. And you make an attack roll once you're grappling the creature. And if you've got the grappler feat, you've got advantage on that attack. And as long as that attack hits, you get to slam them, and they're prone.
Yep.
There is no save for being knocked prone. Like part of your whole movement is they on they butt.
Yeah. You do give up the grapple.
You do give up the grapple.
They can move, but it will take half the movement to stand up.
Right. So, and it's one of those things, again, this is strategizing in combat once you're there. If you were to know that said paladin, said barbarian standing next to you goes in the order before they do, you can put them on their butt before their turn and then let them go to ham on them while they're on their keister with the whole advantage on prone targets for melee attacks. The top rope is one of my most favorite abilities I've read in here. You're thinking, well, it's nothing that wild. No, but what it is unique.
Yes,
is
absolutely.
just like Jameson brought up with the whole grappler feat, playing with the grappler feat and giving you a bonus around the feet. This does something that I don't think happens anywhere else in 5th edition, because this is technically not 5th edition official. As far as playing along 5th edition rules, it has an ability that's keyed around your falling in combat to do something. It's not like slow fall where you don't take falling damage or reduce falling damage. Obviously, as a mechanic, like you're choosing to drop 5 feet, make an unarmed strike, and trying to stun them, which plays well with your monk self anyway. Or knocking them prone automatically grappling. So again, you could top rope to grapple them automatically and then turn around and suplex them again. So like you can really lean into this fun little loop that normally you don't get to play with height. Like verticality isn't leaned into, especially just like falling on top of somebody, and is fantastic. And finally, choked out. We know the problems with Constitution saves in late game. But it only costs you two key points to attempt it, so you're not, even if you wanted to try to go for it, you're not going to be out a huge...
And it doesn't cost you anything to try.
Huge
it's not
resource.
Action or bonus action.
And again, it's not just like, this is not a 2 key points and they save against being grappled. It's freaking being knocked unconscious for a turn. Like, it's
pretty good.
It's pretty good. So, again, yes, there's limitation, but if you find maybe a caster in the group that isn't quite as thing, or if you want to just to stun, maybe they got a kind of a rogue-like enemy you're fighting, maybe don't have quite as high a con as the big beefy thing you're fighting, you can try to choke it out, or you can try to go for the big thing and wait just to see what happens.
Yeah. Because
again, it's not a once per day thing, it just costs you 2 key points to give her a shot.
Yep.
Okay. With all that, we gave it a 4 out of a possible 5. Again, there are some limitations. You do have to kind of lead into being this grappler build. You kind of have to take the feat, because if you don't, you're missing out on a lot of things. But this doesn't solve one of Monk's baseline weaknesses, just like with Fighter or Barbarian, for example, is you are very much a focused melee, only melee thing. So if you can't get a hold of something, like if there's stuff in the air, or if there's stuff, that's able to maneuver around you or create difficult terrain for you, there are some limitations to what this can do. But what it does extremely well and is extremely interesting and unique from other options on hand.
Yeah, and I think one of the big things to keep in mind too is, and this kind of transition into synergy. So while I'm saying this, keep that in mind, because we are going to move on to that category as well. Is with the grappling and knocking prone, if you reduce a flying creature's speed to 0, it grounds them. If you knock a flying creature prone, it grounds them. So you have multiple potential ways to ground things. Mm-hmm. You have Step of the Wind. You can double your jumping speed.
Yep.
But if you have a 5 strength, if you're moving 10 or more feet, you can do a high jump, which is your strength modifier plus 3. So it would be 8. With Step of the Wind, it's 16 feet. So they can't be too high up there, or you have to jump off of something to reach it. Kind of deal with a long jump maybe. But that being said, you will have also the ability to set yourself up for off the top rope pretty easily. And if you have just a standing high jump, it's going to be half of that.
But you only need 5 feet.
Right. So there's some ways you can do it relatively easily to get that. But there's a lot of utility in this subclass for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you are going to restrain yourself when you restrain something else. That's the cost to do it, which is fine. A lot of times, because you have, depending on circumstance, always.
Yeah.
But you have a whole party.
Yes.
So if you're fighting against just a couple things or one thing, action economy is going to come into play a lot better. You're only going to get hit, maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times with the multi-attack.
Yep.
It's going to hurt, but it is what it is.
Yep.
Your whole party is going to get to wail on something.
Yep.
So that's a big deal.
With advantage.
You're sacrificing yourself a little bit.
Yep.
So it is definitely good to have the ability to deal with flying things, or just, even just grappling and restraining regular things is a big deal. Knocking things prone is huge. Ranged people aren't going to be huge fans of that because it's going to give them disadvantage.
Yep.
So you got to, play with your party, figure out what you're doing.
Strategize around
have the utility to do that kind of thing. Also with that, like I said, top rope ability leads into some interesting combos, like with knocking things prone, setting stuff up with teammates, party members, depending on your composition. You have extra uses for your key points. It's a big part of being a monk in general. Having the alternate unarmored defense is very interesting. Just the strength charisma build is just weird.
Yes, it is.
I love it because it's
we love it because it's different.
So yeah, it's very interesting. There's the main thing with the monks is your key points.
Yeah.
All right. But also when you're knocking things prone, and if you have, again, you really need to take the grappler feat with this to get that advantage on your attacks. That's going to come into big play. If you're knocking stuff prone, your teammates get advantage on attacks if they're in melee range.
Immediately, I'm like, what if you dipped Barbarian for rage with this, and you're just in there?
You could do some shenanigans.
Just rolling on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could definitely get into that kind of deal for sure. So yeah, with that, on the synergy side, we gave it a 4.
Yes.
It's got some internal synergy with the infinite suplex. You're using extra abilities. You're jumping and hitting stuff. It's got a lot of... You're dealing with grabbing stuff, taking them down, jumping up, landing on stuff. It's got a lot of unique stuff. But the real main thing that makes this work is the ability to grapple anything.
Yes.
Without that...
Right, because without that, the later you go into games, the more times you run into stuff that's huge and gargantuan.
Yep.
And normally, for grand majority of races, you're medium. There's even some smalls, and there's a couple of larges. But even if you're playing a large race, huge is the biggest thing you could even try to grapple normally. This says you could be playing a halfling, and if you want to grapple Tiamat, you absolutely can try to do so. Yeah, go well, but you actually can, and nobody else can.
And we say
even attempt it.
Functionally large, like Goliath that functions as large for most things.
Correct.
Just before we get hammered down below, because I can smell it. I can smell the fire, the burning rage.
Is that something burning up there? The other thing that and this is something we encourage, and I do even more to the extreme as I sit next to my DM. I really, really encourage players and DMs to work together for creative, interesting moments, to stretch outside what is maybe written in the rules for the sake of entertainment value among your group and creating memories. Because an opportunity like this, if you have somebody who really leans into the character and plays it in a fun way, and a DM who works with them, you can create a lot of very interesting, fun things like, just wall kicking off a tree to drop the people's elbow against somebody as they run through your trap just to try to pin them to the ground. Does it say you can run up walls and kick off to get your 5 feet of height? No. But if you did your little jump and then part of your mobility was just... Right. You're only trying to cover 5 feet to get that height. Stuff like that that's not written well. Again, always talk with your DM for ideas you want to try to have. And a lot of DMs that I've met outside of, again, mine and others in our group that have done some DMing, if you work with your DMs ahead of time, a lot of them are going to be willing to work with you and be like, hey, you don't do it all the time, but every few sessions you do something weird, they're probably going to let you get away with it as long as it's not something just really, really stupid.
It's all about having fun, and that's the most important thing.
It is a game, after all.
Yes, it is.
Counter.
And this is unofficial, so if your DM's already letting you play this, they're probably going to let you have a little bit of wiggle room.
Right.
To be fair.
Yes.
So, all that being said, guys, thanks again to our sponsors, Hit Point Press. Make sure you check them out.
All
awesome
the cool stuff.
Always.
So much cool stuff.
So support them, support us, help us do more giveaways, all that great, awesome stuff. Keep the channel rolling. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you know when our new videos are coming out. And as always, thanks for watching.